What's up everyone, today I bring you a much needed update for one of the features for the parameter utilities toolkit, which is all about tackling the busy work that you need to do when creating parameters for your digital assets. So the previous implementation of this feature wasn't that great and I rarely used it. So I took the proverbial bullet and sat down and rewrote the entire implementation of this feature, and I'm glad to say it's much better now. So to showcase the new implementation, I'm just going to go ahead and create parameters for this very simple digital asset that I created. So let's go ahead and start creating parameters. So what I have here is Windows with the let's go ahead and select the subnet. Basically this subnet with the parameters selected. So you will see that how this window is going to automatically fill out with parameters for this digital asset. So let's go ahead and go inside this digital asset and let's see what parameters we want to set for this digital asset. But first of all, we have to mark this digital asset that this is the asset that we want to create our parameters for. So let's go to the master tools and go to the set as parm node. So now this node is marked as a parameter node. Let's go ahead and let's go inside this digital asset and let's add some parameters to it. So it's very simple. We have just a simple shape. We can scale it or whatever, and then we match it to the grid. Then we scatter some points. We create a random p scale, and we just copy input geometry. And also we can give it a unique name. And that's it for digital asset. But the creation of the parameters is it can take quite a big time, especially changing the values of min and max values for parameters that you create for your digital assets. So let's go ahead and start by let's start with the shape that we want to use for this digital asset. So if we go ahead and put down a platonic node, there are a bunch of shapes, and let's say I want to, for my digital asset, to change a shape that I want to use, and I want to make sure that I always default to my, let's say, to my Utah teapot. So I'm going to make sure that I have selected this teapot here, and then go to the MASSEParmUtilities, and I can add either this parameter as a spare parameter or to the digital assets definition. So I'm going to make sure that I press on HDA. So the new feature is basically a pop-up box that says set up name, label, default value for this parameter and min max values. So let's call this instead of this. So this is going to automatically fill with these parameters. Name, label, default value is going to be taken from the value of this parameter when you clicked on menu item. So you can see that teapot is actually at index 6 for this type. So you're going to automatically fill it with 6. And then the min max values are also available for the menu, but that's not really necessary this time. So you can leave it at default. So min and max values are taken from the from these parameters setups. So instead of the type, let's say something like a shape, and then and also label can be shape. Default value, let's leave it. Okay, you can see it's going to automatically add this parameter. It's going to automatically reference it on the digital asset, and you will see that if you go ahead and control middle click on shape, actually doesn't work here. Here it's going to automatically go to the default value Utah teapot, because we set our default value as a Utah teapot. So that's very nice. So let's say now that we have our shape reference, let's go ahead and go to the transform. So let's say I also want to change the height of this teapot when I scatter it. So the previous implementation wasn't that great because it took the entire, basically a parameter, all the parameter indexes. You could only take, if this was like a vector or with multiple fields of input, it would take entire parameter. But this time, if we can take either entire parameter when we click on the parameter name, so this would create a new vector parameter by taking all of these values, or we can take individual values. So let's say I want to only able to control height. So I'm going to make sure that I press my menu item when I'm hovering over the Y value here and add to the param node. You can see I'm going to call this height scale. Height, so default is 1, so then the minimum value negative doesn't really make sense. So I say 0.5 and max maybe something like a 5. Okay, and you can see our parameter on our digital asset has been clamped to these values, and if we so for some reason it doesn't work here. We should be able to control middle click here. So but on the parameter it's going to work. You can see we can go to default to the value that we set when we created this parameter. So match size. Now I want also maybe change the how many points. So I'm going to make sure that when I press the menu, when I want to create this parameter, I'm going to make sure that I have my default value set up. So my default value is going to be 100. So let's go ahead, add to the parameter node, a pt count, point count. So default will be taken from the value that we took there, 100, and the what is it, like 100, 100,000. That's way too much. I just want maybe maximum value to be 1,000. You can see our value is now set up here. And now let's go ahead and set our maximum and minimum scales. So let's go ahead and take these. So instead of the minimum value, minimum scale. So default value can be 0.1. So default 0.1. Minimum value also. I want to make sure that my maximum value is not 10, only like something like 1. So it doesn't really make sense to these parameters to be that big. And then the maximum value is going to be basically the same thing. Default 1, that's fine. And the maximum only 1. So now we have these parameters. So they copy the points. Let's make maybe more points. Then we have to copy the points. We can maybe check to whether we want to instantiate this geometry. Go ahead and add to the digital asset. Let's call this instance. Instantiate. So default value is 1. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the limitation of this tool, because not all parameters are supported, and some of these parameters are just a limitation of the things that we can set up through Python. I'm going to go ahead and create this parameter. So you can see that it didn't took my default value. It didn't go ahead. It didn't take my default value for this toggle box. So most toggle boxes are actually going to work. So the reason this doesn't work is because of this parameter inside this in this copy to points node. If you go to this parameter, the created parameter, go to the channels, you will see that there is option to default values expression language, and all of these are literals, but for some reason for the instance menu item for the toggle, it's actually set up as H script. So what you can do is go ahead and either leave it at this if you want to make sure, if you want to leave it as H script, or you can just put it as literal and put it something like a 1. And now the default value for this parameter has been set to instantiate. So the link hasn't been broken. It still is linked to this one. It's just the way that this parameter is being copied. So that's one thing. So that's one limitation you have to look out for. Some of the default values is not going to work. And then we also want to our string parameter on setting up our name. So for the name, so this is a multi-parameter. So multi-parameters hasn't been tested all that much, but I tested a couple of parameters and it works for the multi-parameters. Should work also just fine. So go ahead and add this one. So for the since we go to only one multi-parameter, and call this name and default value teapot. Set up, and now we have our teapot, and it should have this teapot 1, and we have our reference to this one. And that's it. We have set up our parameters for this HDA very quickly with the relevant default values. Let's go to all the default values. Yeah, so that's really cool. So all the parameters are set up for us. And to showcase a couple more features, I want to talk about the formatting that needs to be used when creating something like a default values for the parameters. So whenever we want to create a multi, so let's say we have our parameters and we have like a, so we have a share. So you can probably use this parameter. So the share parameter, let's say go ahead and I want to use share amount on my HDA and I want to use all three values. So I'm going to go ahead and press on here and parameter node. See, the formatting is going to be a little bit different, especially for the default values. So to make sure that you do not get any errors, make sure that you always return by white space separated however many values that it has fetched. So this time you can see that there are 3 zeros, and then you make sure that if you want your default values to be something different, so make sure that you also have 3 different 3 values separated by white spaces. And that's basically it for the formatting. And now we have, you can see it has copied default values 1, 2, and 3. It's going to look really weird, but that's how you have to look at the formatting that the tool has given you and work from that for something like the default values and for the min and max values. So for the menus, you saw that it uses integer values. So make sure that you also you use integer values, not like a string values. For the menus and for the toggles, it's basically also 1 is enabled and 0 is disabled. And most of the toggle values should work with this tool for something like I think something like maybe like this transform using target point orientation. Let's go ahead and try to add this one. So you can see it automatically took a default value as 1 because we have enabled it. We have it enabled. Let's go ahead and press it OK. You can see this time it's actually go ahead and fetch the correct default value for this node. So it's not perfectly, it's not going to work perfectly with all the parameters. It's not going to work for something like ramps. So the ramps are a little bit more involved. So maybe I'm going to look into them in the future. But I want to showcase one more limitation, which is the drop-down menus. So for some of the nodes, there are nodes that string parameters that have the drop-down menus that fetch something like fetches information, something like attribute values. So if you would add this parameter traditionally, something like dragging it. So let's say I want to get my point, select my point attribute. I would go ahead and just drag it inside here, apply it, and it's going to work. You can see its P scale has been selected because Houdini automatically creates this op menu script that goes ahead and fetches these menu values, and you can see them inside this op menu h script command. Shows the items of the menu parameter on an operator. You can see this L and A is show names and labels for each menu item and shows all menu items including separators. So that's what L and A means. So but if we use, so I'm going to delete this relative reference and create it by this my tool. Let's go ahead and add it. And this time is going to create also relative reference. But if I go ahead and press on this drop down menu, it's going to show me an error. So that is because it didn't create automatically the callback script. So you can see that this script is actually the same script that is used inside this node that we took our parameter from. So that means this is not a valid code for this parameter here. So what you can do is remember the formatting. At least for now, maybe I could implement it automatically, fetching it also values, but for now what you can do is just remember the formatting that Houdini uses. Op menu LA, and then you can see the you can see the node name that was used, the node name that parameter was taken from, and then the parameter name. So you can see that attribute I just flowed to, an attribute is the parameter name. So what you can do is just go ahead and copy this script and paste it inside here. And now it actually go also and make sure that you set it as H script. And now we have basically the same menu here. So that's temporary workaround for the if you want your drop-down menus also work, or you can just go ahead and use it traditionally and just drop it with while the type properties are opened. So these are a couple of limitations that I have found thus far. So actually I want to make sure my shares are at 0. So basically that's it for this video. So if you want to get it, I'm going to update my GitHub repository. The link is going to be in the description, and I go ahead, download it, check it out, see the limitations, and if you want for me to include something, or even a general feature, or the way that this tool works, this feature works, write me an email, and I'm gladly going to help you. So that's it for this video, and see you next time.